Welcome back to another episode of Quarantine Talks. Myself, Mayowa Quadri. Today I've got someone that I would define as an innovator within the football space, doing a lot of big stuff and just kind of changing the norms of football that have been around for so long, and just bring something fresh. I've got my boy Anthony Aluko, aka Smart, aka Smart Coach, performance specialist. What's good, bro? How you doing?
I'm well, my bro. I'm well. You know, whatever you're on, I'm on. So that's why I'm here.
I appreciate that, man. So the first thing, I've been speaking to a lot of people, right? First thing I'm asking everyone when it comes to quarantine is, what's your diet saying at the moment?
Mad. What an amazing question. What an amazing question, bro. Oh my days. All right, cool.
You're a performance specialist, so I want to know what's going on with yours at the moment.
Yeah, and I always have to keep it 100. So it started off really bad. started off really bad. It started off like that. You know what it is? It's not. I eat good stuff, and I eat the right things, but it's the timing of when I'm eating. That's the problem I have. Do you know what I'm saying? So I love carbs, and you know, it's now starting to become a thing where carbs are, you know, not my best friend at the moment. So, and I think I've had to lower the carbs because of the times I'm eating. So I'm eating, you know, it's tough for everyone else because we're waking up at like 12, let's say, which I've tried to stop doing. You end up eating around 1, so you've missed breakfast, and then, you know, I'll get hungry again because I'm at home. And you just want to get into the habit of eating because you've got nothing else to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, you end up staying up till 2 because you know you don't have to wake up early.
Yeah.
And then you end up eating at like midnight 1. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's my problem at the moment. It's I eat the right balance between protein and fiber, especially I take a lot of supplements and stuff like that, so I'm good in that kind of regards. But boy, it's just the timing that's been kind of messing up my whole timetable.
I totally hear that as well, because you get a lot of people that say that, you know what, it just disrupted everything for me, and then they actually gradually get back into a routine. And hearing that from you is interesting because obviously you're a performance specialist. You work with, I would say, an array of talents. You work with some of the best females in the Women's Super League. You also work with Premier League stars. You work with academy players. And when you speak to footballers at the moment, they all say it's a tough time. What's the toughest thing about quarantine for you at the moment? Because one thing that stands out for me is usually you're coaching these guys live in the flesh, right? What's the toughest challenge for a performance specialist in quarantine?
I think for me, it's like I'm not used to being at home. I think that's the first thing. I'm really not. Like, I'll be at home maybe obviously I'll be out of the house by maybe like 9, and then I'll come back at like 9. So I'm used to being at home for short periods of time, and that's probably what I've struggled with the most. I think from a performance specialist side, it's been adapting to trying to use technology in order to do my sessions, and I've been pretty stubborn, I'll be honest with you. Like, I didn't want to do Zoom sessions and video sessions because I couldn't understand how or where the value would come from it, because it's not my style of training. All of my stuff is very realistic. You know, we use, you know, vast amounts of space and equipment and stuff like that. I'm not your technical type of coach. It's implemented in the sessions, but it's not the way that I coach. So there's a short camera, and you know, most players have very short spaces. We don't have the luxuries. Not everyone has the luxuries of having gardens and stuff. So it was a bit of a stubbornness in my head where I was like, I don't want to do no Zoom sessions because it's not realistic for me. I prefer to write performance plans, which I did, and for the players to follow the performance plans accordingly, and for me to check up on them when need be. But I've kind of adapted in the space of a week to doing that slightly different. Yeah.
And I guess where the difficulty probably comes as well is because you coach so many different type of talent, they all have different situations, right? I mean, you might have some players that are very likely to go back to playing. I know you've got players abroad as well where their situation is completely different. So they still need you and need your service. And I guess what's also interesting is because you do a lot of stuff with agents, don't you?
Yeah.
With Magma, right? So how is it on that front where, in terms of being a performance specialist, you've got players that are under agency that have different situations that need to be in the best condition they can be, because who knows what happens in the summer? How are you managing to handle all of that?
Yeah, it's difficult because, as you said, like for example, Charlie Colkett, he's currently been on Ostersons when all of this was going on. He had the luxury of having a pitch, and they've given him a program, but he wanted the little extra bits to do at the same time. So it's like, trying to tailor to keeping up with what Charlie's doing, and he's been all right, to be fair. So it's not been much of a problem. But then, for example, Kira Walsh, England and Man City player, women's player, I was meant to go up there a week before this kind of lockdown happened. And I was literally all guns blazing. I'm going there no matter what, whether they tell me not to go or whatever. And then they completely locked it down. So she had to miss out on that extra bit of training where, she can do it herself, but it's just tailoring it. That's what it is. And I can't see what they're doing all the time. And it's very difficult because of that. But as I said, you kind of just have to adapt in these times at the moment.
And how about punctuality and stuff like that? Because me and you had a phone call yesterday and we were just catching up. One of the things you're telling me is, so I'm trying to do the session. People not turning up to the session on time.
So, I think I take it with a pinch of salt, because even myself, we did a session today, and some guys were like, "Oh man, I got like my computer's not working on my phone. I ain't got network in my garden." That's more from the young players, and if they're watching this or whatever, they know exactly what I'm talking about. My garden don't have no Wi-Fi. Okay, that's fair enough, but there's ways around it, etc. So it's just a funny thing to have to now try and change. And again, today I had my own little hiccup. I did the Zoom session and I didn't even know how to use the Zoom properly. I had to I didn't know you had to mute everyone in order for you to be the only one on camera. So, and then my connection went and all the boys were laughing at me and stuff like that. It's all a bit of banter, but at the same time, I think for me, I'm quite so particular and I liked it to be all kind of structured, etc. So it's just like trying to adapt and just take it for what it is at the moment in time, because it's not easy. It's not easy.
I totally hear you. It's crazy at the moment. But you mentioned the young boys, and when we started off this, I said that I see you as an innovator, right? And I remember one of the first times I met you, one of the things you said was you're trying to change you've created your own curriculum of football coaching, and that resonated a lot, because for a long time, especially at kind of younger level, there was only one book of how to coach kids. Just one book. There's one way, and it's refreshing when you see someone like yourself who, all for it. You've gone out and you've got the experience, because you did your stint at QPR when you was coaching. And then you built your curriculum. What's the process behind that? And what's the process behind everything you do with kind of EBT and yourself, really?
I think for me it was a case of finding out how can you develop a player individually, because that was one of the biggest issues I had. You might be part of a great team, but that team you don't end up with forever. Different people come in, different managers change, etc., etc. So I think that's where I found out that I really wanted to hone into what makes a player like them for themselves. There's some brilliant S&C coaches, but at the time when I started, there wasn't a lot of one-to-one kind of individual coaches at the time. So that was one of the biggest inspirations towards that. EBT is more of like it's a philosophy that allows me to help players develop them individually, but in the most general consensus, so that players who aren't particularly the most technical or aren't particularly the most fast per se can all develop in their individual positions. And I think with EBT, it's called evidence-based training because I'm trying to give evidence of that as much as possible. I don't want to have you to take my word as a coach and that's kind of it. We don't know whether you've improved because you know, if you're not scoring 5 goals in a game, that's my fault. I don't want it to be like that. I want it to be that there's some sort of structured regime that we go by. There's some sort of evidence that gives you trust in me to do the job. So a lot of it is behind finding out what players can do things, basics within their position, and then getting them to execute those things quickly, like with the pace of the game, which is only relevant to the game. Hence why I struggle with Zoom sessions because all of my stuff is creating realistic stuff, but forcing you to do it quickly as you would do in a game. And then the last phase of that is the fatigue, doing it quickly, but coping with the in-game fatigue. And that's why, you know, about a year or year and a half ago, I focused on just purely top end athletes within academies and first team environments, because, you know, this kind of suits them a bit more. Whereas, you know, grassroots, you kind of had to pump a bit more attention and pick out a few more details and help them understand. Whereas I think I'm in my element within this, and the players really kind of hone into it because it's what they do at clubs anyway.
Yeah. On that though, about working more with academy kids and working with kind of first team talent and professionals, because I said you work with a rare talent. One thing I've noticed is, and you could probably speak to more of it, being a head of performance and a performance specialist, when you look at the talent within academies, there's clearly a talent, there's talented footballers. However, making a step up to senior professional football, it's a progression that you don't see a lot of talented players make. And being someone that's around it, being someone that's seen an array of talent, being someone that works with professionals, what are some reasons or what's some sort of insight as to that transition not happening? Yeah,
it's a tough one. I think there are just some amazing players, do you know what I'm saying, that just don't, it's like a combination of being in the right place at the right time and having the right opportunity that's right for you. I don't know how to describe it. It's like, let's say, for example, any type of job, whether it be, you know, trying to break into an industry within music or something like that. I think it's very relatable from that aspect, because there are some great musicians that just, you know, might not have the right platform or not have had the right connection or the opportunity. And I think that it's a similar kind of consensus with a lot of the young players. Some of them, you know, aren't the cream of the crop, which is, you know, how the game goes most of the time. But I think a lot of the time it is, did you get the right move at the right club? Were you at the right club from the start? Did they invest in you? Did they look after you? Did you have the right guidance? Sometimes it's a lot more external factors that it's like playing a game of chess, that you have to think before about what the end goal is before, you know, you make the certain moves. And that's where, you know, that's why I've kind of come to understand that agents do play quite a big part in a way, where they can obviously create the path of the player and help the player understand what they want to achieve. But when it comes to slightly younger, it's just literally where, if you're putting in the work on the pitch, doing what you need to do, etc., it's just making the right connections, the right moves, the right choices, and have the right people around you to make sure that you get to that end goal.
On the agent point, speak to me more on that, because again, I'm not too sure, but in terms of your setup now, that you're head of performance within an agency, that seems pretty new. I mean, I remember coaching and agents approaching coaches, but it's one of the first times I've seen an agent network actually say, okay, this is our head of performance. He's going to manage all of our athletes. So in terms of that aspect and playing a part in player development, why is that not more popular, and why is it the direction you guys have gone in?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. I think it's exactly what I thought before even, you know, making that choice to commit. And obviously, as you know, I didn't make that choice straight away. I developed a relationship with Toby and understood him, got to know him as a person. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think the reason why a lot of people may not have done it is because they're scared to commit and lose other things around them, possibly. So that being, you know, not being able to to work with certain other types of players that might not be part of the same agency, not being able to earn a living wage per se immediately, whereas I've kind of sacrificed a few elements within that to commit to something that I think is going to be a lot more long term. And I think that's again, it just comes down to that whole idea of playing chess. Like I always say that I could definitely, charge X amount and just coach anyone and everyone for the money aspect. But I really do want to be part of players' careers. I want to be able to say, that player on TV is the person that I helped. And I also want to be able to be a part of something that I think is more than just a salary per se. I want to really be part of players' careers in that way. So I didn't want to be an agent. I don't want to be an agent. I think this was the smartest way in order for me to do that. And I think while I would say, I have these players that I work with, it just puts them in a box for me to be able to really look after them properly, rather than I coach this player here and there, etc. I don't see him for another 2 months and stuff like that. That's not really, I want to be able to say, I created the structure, I implemented the structure, and the player is now here. And I think the agency gives me that kind of box to put all of my resources into, kind of thing.
And being yourself and being someone that's invested so much time into creating your philosophy and having a reputation of working with so many talents, what's it like when you're kind of getting into conversations with clubs almost? Because on the other hand, like you've mentioned, you alluded to, football clubs, if you bring in someone at the age of 9, you invest a philosophy into this youngster. Let's say, for instance, run a club in the Midlands, say, you know what, this is how we're going to play. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. And then you come along and you say, okay, based on what you've done and everything, this is how, we think that you can progress forward. How is it working with professional football clubs? Because a lot of clubs historically are kind of like that. It's kind of everything's within house. You've obviously managed to break them all because you're coaching a lot of academy players from loads of academies and you're pro players. So what's it like working with professional clubs?
Yeah, I think, I started off with the narrative of, I'm against football clubs. Do you know what I'm saying? That was literally how it started off.
How did that narrative start off for you?
It probably started off by, having, some players are in Tottenham, Arsenal, etc. And some of those players aren't the golden boys, and therefore, because they're not the golden boys, they don't get the extra stuff that some of those players get in their clubs. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's then where people like myself started to come into play. Do you know what I'm saying? That's how it started. So then I would get a lot of things from parents saying, my players at Tottenham, my son's at Tottenham, and they're just not really investing a lot of time into him. They don't play him in the right position, this, that, blah, 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 kind of thing. So then it started to be a stigma of, well, look, at the end of the day, you might not be at that club forever. Do you know what I'm saying? You're not going to take the whole team with you to go play for I don't know, West Ham first team or whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? You don't take your number 9 and your goalkeeper with you. It's going to be just you. And this journey is about just you. So that's what I'm here for. Whereas the club is there for the club. Do you know what I'm saying? How the club makes money, how they develop their players, who gets to play where. Sometimes it's even more political than that. So I think for me, that's where it kind of started off, where I was like, I'm against the clubs, run the clubs, this, that, and the other. And then that started to change quite quickly, because at the end of the day, I started to get relationships with my own clubs as well. So Sheffield United, I have a good relationship with Ipswich, Wolves. A lot of them are outside of London, to be fair, when I think about it. But yeah, so then I obviously started to try and change. So I started to try and change the way that my thought process was and mold around, what the club wants for the player, but also what do we, as me, parent, maybe agent, if they're in the play, brother, sister, whoever it is, what do we want for you? Because what they want for you and what we want for you might be slightly different. And if we can find the right balance, it's about getting you to become a pro. That's the idea, or be the best pro that you can possibly be.
No, I totally hear that. And what I always forget the percentage of players that actually become. I know in Premier League it's like 0.09, but
0.09
professional in
or
general
something.
it's still quite low, right? Professional players in general as well, it's still quite low. So
It's like 0.001 or something crazy like that from when I last read about it, which was
crazy, man.
probably like 3 years ago. But yeah, it's
Crazy.
nuts.
So what's the
Nuts.
long-term vision with yourself in terms of Magma's there and you guys are building something like a dynasty, which is sick, and more power to Toby Alabi as well, because kind of see his transformation from player into someone that's now giving people opportunities. Sick, you're there with him as well. But what's the long term for you? Because just out of interest, you've got people like Superior Striker. Again, he's not a performance specialist, but his USP is he's specialised in striking, and it's not just for forward. It's anyone that strike a ball. He will do stuff for England. He will do stuff with clubs, etc. What's your kind of long-term game in this?
Yeah. So where I'm at currently is we're building an app. So that's where we're at currently. We're building an app that's going to allow players that I don't train to be able to use this app and train. And we're going to build this app out until it becomes a real beast, basically. This app will be in a round of keeping players fit, obviously watching videos, etc. But it's allowing players to log their information, see their progression, etc. Very much in tied with EBT, obviously. And what I do. So that's kind of like the long-term aspect of where we're going at the moment. It should be done by hopefully June, and we're just going to build it out so it's able to use within schools, universities, clubs, etc. So they have something, a level of accountability when it comes to training, because I feel like there's just sometimes a lack of accountability. And then for myself, again, as you said, help Magma grow to where I feel like it can be. And obviously a part of that journey interlinks within growing within that company as well, alongside Toby, which I think is really exciting for us both. And then I think from there, it should be a case of kind of balancing those two, in my opinion. I want what we're building out to be a real machine. And something that's just not, as I said, not just an app. It will be something that allows all types of people to use in order to kind of monitor players' performance, pretty much.
That's dope. And if you keep going at the pace you're going at now, that's definitely going to happen for sure. Well, it's going to happen. Anyway. That's the main thing. But
love for that, bro.
Proper appreciate it, man. There was something I was going to ask as well, because for me it stands out a lot. I keep mentioning before you're a performance specialist, but Adidas came to you.
Love.
How does that happen? Do you understand? Because for normally it's kind of you go to the athletes or you go to kind of clubs with notoriety. They've come to a performance specialist. How did that come about, and what was kind of the ethos behind what they were doing there?
I think again, it's like as we know with everything, it just comes down to meeting the right people at the right time, having the right type of discussion. And it's literally just timing. I remember I had a phone call from an agent that I was dealing with, and he basically said that he wanted the agent asked me that if I could help bring some athletes towards Adidas, and I was like, okay, why? And he said, oh, Adidas are trying to grow this aspect of their brand and they want some brand awareness. If we could push some players forward to them, brilliant. Okay, brilliant. I had the phone conversation with Adidas. They were like, what players do you have contact with? I knew the likes of I had quite a few videos out at the time, so I was like, oh, this is kind of the videos that we've been doing with the players. I've got great relationship with this, that, and etc. Then I said, but you can't have access to them until you sort me out or something. That's
Yeah.
basically what I said. And I said, it's always a value exchange. It's always going to be a value exchange for me.
100%,
What I have, you might want, and what you have, I might want. That's how we do business.
You've got to know your worth, innit? Especially in football,
Yeah.
and especially in football, you've got to know your worth.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think sometimes a lot of people my age, we fall into the trap of, oh, it's Adidas, like, oh, it's Nike, or like, we might as well just do it, and then they'll be your friends, and it just never ran like that with me at all from the day dot. So, it kind of grew from there. They liked the play. We did an event with them. So the event was our idea. We did the event. Sun's kind of not catching, you know, but did the event. They liked. We had like 30, 40. Academy players come down, and I think they just we grew a relationship and kind of caught on from there. So it just allowed me to show what value I have, and in exchange they kind of just kind of started to mess with me after that.
That's sick, man. But hopefully quarantine finishes soon, so you can get back and busy and live in the flesh, as opposed to, well, think about it this way: if you're building an app, this is a good experience because you're not always going to be there. So it's a valuable learning at the same time, I guess.
It's a catch-22, boy. Like the app, my ankle, I obviously fractured my ankle.
Yeah. How did that happen, actually?
Oh, bruv. I was playing I was in a session with A-Star Barbers, Ahmed.
Yeah.
And we were just having a kickabout. A funny session, but a kickabout towards the end, and then I got a bit competitive and fell on my ankle really bad. I got the video of it, but I didn't want to put it up for those that are sensitive. It's a bad thing. Yeah. But no, bro. Love. Anyone who's watching this, watch out for this guy. I know he keeps talking about me, but honestly, there's a reason. There's a reason why he's doing this type of stuff. He's on the up and up.
No, bro. Proper appreciate it, man. Listen, I'm sure we'll catch up soon, man. That's another episode of Quarantine Talks, guys. Out.